Brazil's far-right president has once again spoken out against social distancing to combat COVID-19, saying that Brazilians should not cower in the face of the virus. According to Governor Andrew Cuomo, the coronavirus outbreak in New York State, the epicenter of the epidemic in the United States, is on the descent. The Center for Communicable Diseases in Qatar has started using plasma from recovered COVID-19 patients to help in the treatment of some critical cases. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, I'm Katrina Goss. Brazil's far-right President Jair Bolsonaro has once again spoken out against social distancing to combat COVID-19, saying that Brazilians should not cower in the face of the virus. During a religious pro-life rally in Brasilia, Bolsonaro once again called on his supporters to break the quarantine, in direct contradiction of the recommendations of the World Health Organization and most experts. With over 2,000 deaths registered so far due to the novel coronavirus, Brazil's new health minister, Nelson Tech, has said he agrees with the president's decisions. Venezuelan Vice President for Communications Jorge Rodriguez offered a report on the ongoing battle against the COVID-19 pandemic on Sunday, noting that Venezuela has now confirmed 256 coronavirus cases.
Hoy tenemos que reportar 29 nuevos casos.
We have to report 29 new cases found over the last 24 hours, 3 of whom are people who crossed the border with Colombia. At the border crossing, where we maintain strict health screenings, we detected these 3 cases. There are also 5 new cases in Miranda State, where a focus point of the virus has been detected, as 3 of the new cases are people who work security for an important national company.
De estos 5 casos del estado de Miranda persiste el foco, 3 de estos casos son del foco de una empresa de seguridad que le da servicios a una importante empresa nacional.
And Brazil continues to have the largest number of confirmed coronavirus cases in Latin America at almost 37,000. According to statistics from Johns Hopkins University, Peru follows Brazil with 14,420 reported cases and 348 deaths. Chile has reported over 10,000 cases and 133 deaths. Ecuador has officially reported more than 9,000 cases and over 400 fatalities. They're followed by Mexico, the Dominican Republic and Panama as the countries most affected by the pandemic in the region. In Chile, the controversy between state officials and Sebastián Piñera's government has been aggravated after the announcement on Friday that state employees must get back to work to gradually staff state offices. Chile's National Association of State Employees, together with the Workers' United Center of Chile Union Federation and other workers' organizations, have said their members will not report for work in person and instead they will continue to work from their homes. They accuse the government of promoting a criminal act.
From today, all public employees are on high alert, in close coordination and keeping informed about this attack, this grave and criminal mistake of sending Joint Memo number 18, signed by the Interior and Finance Ministers, declaring normality according to them and requiring all civil servants to return to work.
The Medical College of Guayas in Ecuador informed on Sunday of the deaths of over 80 doctors who were working on the front line against the COVID-19 virus. Ecuador continues to be one of the worst affected nations in the Latin American region. The latest news came among complaints about the lack of personal protective equipment for health workers. Meanwhile, COVID-19 data shared on social media by local sources has become the reference for the statistics to follow the outbreak in the South American nation, as official numbers appear to fall far short. The Nurses Guild has also reported 8 COVID-19 deaths, besides the threats of suspension for those workers releasing real figures. Estimates are that over 430 Ecuadorian doctors are infected with the novel coronavirus. The Dominican Republic has reported over 4,600 COVID-19 cases and 226 deaths, making it the most affected country in the Caribbean region. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister of St Kitts and Nevis, Timothy Harris, announced a full 24-hour curfew from Saturday, April 18th to Saturday, April 25th. During 4 days of the coming week, the curfew will be partial to allow individuals to purchase the necessary supplies to remain in their homes. The Caribbean nation has so far reported 14 confirmed cases of COVID-19. China and Argentina this Saturday unveiled a historic airlift to bring medical supplies to the South American country aboard an Aerolíneas Argentinas flight. The unprecedented flight, which required detailed planning on account of the distance between both countries, landed at Buenos Aires Ezeiza International Airport from Shanghai. The cargo includes 13 tons of medical supplies and personal protection equipment to fight COVID-19. A second flight is expected next Tuesday. Enthusiasts across the world this Sunday joined the first stay-at-home international race, organised to mark the 59th anniversary of Cuba's Playa Girón, or Bay of Pigs, victory.
Burundun here, from Cuba and to the world. First stay-at-home international race organised by the Varadero Half Marathon Committee.
Running or jogging or just moving around at home was the purpose of the organisers of Varadero's Half Marathon this Sunday, who convened this virtual race to commemorate 59th anniversary of the Playa Girón victory.
Hola chicos, buenas tardes.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Greetings from Barcelona, greetings from a distance but close at heart. We're here warming up and getting ready to take part in this first race commemorating the 59th anniversary of the Playa Girón victory. We're urging everybody to stay active from their homes with discipline in these times of confinement. Greetings, hugs, and there's no stopping us.
Outstanding sports veterans like Montreal 1976 two-time Olympic champion Alberto Juan Torena, president of the Cuban National Athletic Federation, took part in the initiative to promote social isolation with the purpose of curbing the spread of COVID-19.
I wish to send a big hug to the international community confined at home to help fight COVID-19. Greetings to you and a message of hope and strength, as we will together pull through. There's no stopping us. I'm promoting the idea to continue doing sports and stay active at home, supporting the Cuban people and all the people around the world who are affected by the pandemic. We shall get together for this cause. We can do it. We'll get through this.
Varadero's third half marathon was scheduled for March 29th, but like many other sporting events, it had to be postponed due to the novel coronavirus. The new date for this event has been set for September 29th this year.
From Puerto Rico, the San Juan Bautista Choir has brought together at least 47 people from their homes to sing Un Bello Amanecer as another musical initiative in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. Let's take a look. Welcome back to From the South. The number of people killed by COVID-19 in the United States climbed to over 40,000 on Sunday. The US death toll is the highest in the world and is almost 2 times bigger than the figures from Italy, which is currently ranked second in terms of fatalities. The death toll has jumped by 10,000 in just 4 days after untested but probable coronavirus fatalities were added to the numbers. However, there is some hope as the pandemic is showing signs of slowing down in New York, the epicenter of the outbreak in the US. The number of hospitalizations has dropped by 2,000 and now stands at 16,000. The daily death toll of 507 was also smaller compared to earlier record figures of more than 700 fatalities per day. During a briefing on Sunday, New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo announced that the state will perform the most aggressive antibody testing campaign in the whole of the US next week in order to try and understand how so many people became infected.
Big question of whether we've been past the apex, past the high point. And it turned out the high point wasn't a point, but the high point was a plateau. And we got up to a high point, and then we just stayed at that level for a while. But if the data holds, and if this trend holds, we are past the high point, and all indications at this point are that we are on a descent. Whether or not the descent continues depends on what we do, but right now we are on a descent.
Spain reported its lowest daily number of COVID-19 deaths in nearly a month on Sunday as the country continues to work to contain a severe outbreak that has killed over 20,000 people.
In any case, it is a figure that gives us hope. That increase of 410 deaths represents an increase compared with the previous day of 2%. And we also see that the increases in the hospitalized and in new ICU cases are also in that downwards line that we are seeing in the last few weeks, are clearly below a 1% increase. In other words, the data with those small ups and downs that we constantly observe and that are characteristic of any series of data related to infectious diseases follows that downward trend that we have been observing for a long time. And that clearly indicates that the transmissibility of the disease, the transmission of the disease has been substantially reduced. And we are on the right track, thanks obviously to everyone's efforts.
A lone British doctor held a protest outside Downing Street on Sunday to highlight the lack of personal protective equipment for the UK's National Health Service staff. The protest came after the death of Mary Agyewa Agriabon, a 28-year-old pregnant nurse working in Luton near London, who died after contracting the virus. Her baby daughter was delivered successfully by caesarean section and is doing well, according to the hospital. So far, the UK has reported over 120,000 COVID-19 cases and more than 16,000 fatalities. However, the figure only represents those who have died in hospitals.
Here today for all the doctors, nurses and healthcare workers who lost their lives tragically and senselessly to COVID. And despite being told we have enough protection, lives are still being lost, vulnerable members of staff are losing their lives, and they're not being taken care of, and we know that because they're dying. We're still in a position where we're on our knees begging for PPE, and if we had enough, we wouldn't have grannies stitching up our masks, and we wouldn't have pensioners raising money for the NHS. It's not a charity. The government should have been prepared a long time ago, and that's why we're in this position now. We're on track to having one of the highest mortality rates of healthcare workers due to COVID in the world, and this is not okay. The government must protect its healthcare workers.
French Prime Minister Edouard Philippe stressed at a press conference on the coronavirus epidemic in France on Sunday that the health crisis is not yet over.
Our life from May 11 onwards will not be exactly as it was before confinement, not immediately and probably not for a long time. But since we have achieved containment together, we will achieve the confinement together as we have learned to fight against the virus. We will gradually learn to organize our collective life with this virus by implementing new habits, by living daily lives that will be a little different, but by regaining the freedom to which we are attached.
As many as 6,060 new coronavirus cases have been reported across Russia over the last 24 hours, according to the country's COVID-19 Crisis Centre. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 death toll has surpassed 360 nationwide. The figures demonstrate a significant increase in new cases in comparison to previous days, when Russia recorded about 4,700 new cases. The majority were reported in Moscow, where 3,570 people have been diagnosed with the disease over the past 24 hours. The Russian capital has now reported over 24,000 cases. Meanwhile, the Moscow region, currently second on the list of areas most affected by the virus in Russia, trails far behind with 4,663 confirmed cases. However, the authorities have stressed that the increase is the result of mass testing. Welcome back to From the South. The Centre for Communicable Diseases in Qatar has started using plasma from recovered COVID-19 patients to help in the treatment of some critical cases. Some of the recovered patients are donating around 600 millilitres of blood twice a week. Doctors are then extracting plasma from the blood, which is transfused to patients in a critical condition as part of their treatment. The practice started after Chinese scientists proved that the plasma from recovered patients could work for 70% of infected patients. Nonetheless, the treatment is still in its experimental phase. The Iranian government confirmed on Sunday that its navy had a confrontation with US naval vessels in the Persian Gulf. Authorities explained that a fleet of 11 Iranian ships came face-to-face with US warships, which then in turn performed what has been described as defiant and unprofessional maneuvers while ignoring warnings. The US warships were eventually forced to leave the area. The Iranian government has announced increased patrols of the Gulf, adding that such actions by a foreign power are considered a threat to national security and will be met with a decisive response. The permanent representative of Iran to the United Nations, Mayyad Taj Ravanchi, has fired back at recent statements made by US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Speaking to the UN Security Council, Pompeo called for an extension of the arms embargo against Iran, claiming that the country could start a new arms race in the Middle East. Ravanchi stressed that what Pompeo called for is a violation of UN Resolution 2231, as in October of this year, the arms embargo approved by the Security Council will come to an end. He added that the US is starting to make its moves in order to stop the lifting of the embargo. It's business as usual in Malawi after the country's High Court on Friday temporarily barred the government from implementing a 21-day lockdown to curb the coronavirus, following a petition by a human rights group. The Malawi Human Rights Defenders Coalition argued that the government had failed to announce any measures to support the poor during the lockdown.
That as HRDC, we are not against the lockdown. We think a lockdown is important because it's proved elsewhere that it can stop or reduce the spread of the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. Our message, though, and our worry is that government should not rush into effecting a lockdown without making sure that it has put in place measures that would cushion the vulnerable.
South Africa now has over 3,100 confirmed cases of COVID-19. Minister of Health Dr. Zweli Mkhize announced on Saturday night that over 114,000 people have been tested in the African nation. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 death toll in South Africa has risen to 54. South Africa has the largest number of confirmed cases in the African continent, although Egypt is not far behind and has reported more than 4 times more fatalities. At least 131 people have died in Zimbabwe from malaria, and more than 135,000 have been infected, just as the COVID-19 pandemic hits the country. The Health Ministry announced on Twitter on Saturday that over 200 malaria outbreaks have been reported throughout the country, mostly in the provinces of Manicaland, Masvingo and Mashonaland East. 90 of the outbreaks have been controlled. Zimbabwe managed to reduce malaria cases between 2003 and 2013 thanks to strong government funding. But as the country continues to face serious economic challenges under US sanctions, as well as the deterioration of its health system, malaria outbreaks have steadily increased. The latest outbreaks are taking place amid the COVID-19 pandemic that has infected 24 and killed 3 people in Zimbabwe. Artists from around the globe gathered online on Saturday night to perform the One World Together at Home concert as part of a campaign rallying funds for the World Health Organization's COVID-19 Solidarity Response Fund. The online concert included stars likes of Andrea Bocelli, Celine Dion and Lady Gaga, who offered songs of hope and solidarity in the midst of the novel coronavirus pandemic. We finished this news brief with clips of the concert. Remember to follow us on social media and our website for all the latest news. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching and enjoy the music.
I pray you'll be alright and watch us where we go and help us to be wise in times when we don't know. Let this be our prayer we lose our way. Lead us to a place.
Guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be saved. Sogniamo un mondo senza più violenza, un mondo di giustizia e di speranza. Ognuno dia la mano al suo vicino, simbolo di pace, di fraternità. La forza che tu dai.
We ask that life be kind and watch us from above.
Ognuno trovi amore.
We hope it's so will
Intorno e dentro
find
sé.
another soul to love.
Let this be our prayer.
Let this be our prayer.
Just like every child,
Just like every child, need to find a place.
guide us with your grace.
Sento che ci sono.